Oh, well, look who's here in color.
Hi.
Hi,
I'm in
Rich.
color, yeah.
Color, how come?
I don't know.
Oh,
There I am.
oh,
I've just traveled back in time.
yes, yeah. I'm sure we wanted to show everyone who's watching that you have your color back in your face, and that
Yes.
you're all mended after a bit of man down time for you. I'm glad
Yes, feeling
you're
a lot
back.
better today.
Excellent, excellent. It's great to have you back. It's great to be
Yeah.
back.
And I
It's
appreciate all the well wishes that everyone sent. So it's much appreciated.
yes, excellent.
Well,
Um,
thank you everyone for joining us. This is just our casual little chat that we're going to do before the show. And the show is going to start in about a little over 20 minutes. So we're excited about that. How
yeah.
are you doing, Natalie?
Yeah, I'm all good. Yeah, we're going in roughly 22 minutes and 40 seconds. And yeah, we have a super awesome show lined up. I'm super excited. As always, we
Hmm.
have, thought of a couple of cool topics to discuss. And we have a guest on the show again. Who's already like in the green room waiting for us and his moment to come on the show. So that's absolutely fabulous. There's Rashida sending hearts. Hi, Rashida. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's
Hello.
yeah, yeah.
Yay.
Round of applause for you. I want to also say thank you to the audience for being so patient with us and giving us a little
Hmm.
bit of extra time. I was busy with family matters, and then Richie was sick, so it's actually been 7 weeks to the day the last time we were here. So that's a little bit longer than we usually want to, but sometimes life happens, right? So thank you
Yeah.
for understanding and for your support. And thank you all the way from Germany. That's fabulous. Thank you
Hi,
so much.
Thomas.
Yes. And so this is the pre show where we just, chat a little bit about all sorts of stuff in a bit more of an informal way. Um,
Hmm.
Florence, Italy. Very nice to have you here. Thank you so much. We have a trivia question that we've got lined up just now that we want to throw out there just for a little bit of lighthearted fun and conversation, and maybe,
Hmm.
maybe in an effort to learn something that is, not really of importance, but still interesting to know.
It's always
So,
fun.
exactly, yes. Hello, Pilot Pete. Being back here again. It's great to see
Thanks for tuning in.
faces. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have a topic though that I wanted to chat about, and I'm glad that so many people's already tuned in, so that we can maybe throw this back at you as well. Because I came across a conversation that happened in the film simulation group on Facebook the other day,
Hmm.
a place where you can go and also discuss and post your pictures that you've taken with the recipes, if you feel you want, some feedback in between the shows. And there someone was asking if you or when it is that you use recipes and shoot JPEG straight out of camera, and when you would opt for post processing, or what the point of
Okay.
each of it is general. So I think it's a well known topic, something that I think the reason why we're here on the show. And we will discuss that a little bit after the trivia question. But okay, this is really cool. We have the question for you. What does it mean to zoom with your feet? Okay, so this is a question that comes from trivia, the photography trivia deck. It's something that I picked up online a little over a year ago, and we pull a question once in the show just for some lighthearted fun. And we don't know the question beforehand, so
Mm-mm.
this one is asking you, everyone, what it means to zoom with your feet. So you are more than welcome to give us your guesses or your informed guesses, whatever it is. Hi there, Joyo from France. Thanks so much for tuning in. What do you think it means to zoom with your feet? Do you want to send us your answer in the comments? We have about 15 minutes for that. You don't need to use Google. There is no prize to be won. It's literally just some light-hearted conversation. Hello, Hattie. It's good to have you here as well.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah. So I think, I know the answer, but I don't want to just blurt out the answer. So I'm going to say that zoom with your feet means to run really fast. Like you got to get somewhere. You got your camera in your hand, but you're going to miss the opportunity if you don't run really fast. I know that's not the right answer.
Okay, you're being a really good sport there. That's brilliant. I have one that prompted me, your answer there prompted me on something. But first, let's give a shout out to Torsten, who's tuning in from Marbach, and he sends greetings to everyone and all the recipe nerds all over the world. That's great. Thank you so much for being back here again, Torsten. A very good evening to you too, and also to Taikido, who's joining us today. Thank you so much for being here with us. And how about you take a guess as to what it means to zoom with your feet? As a dog owner, I can say that there is an expression, I don't know if it's South African English or if that exists in other parts of the world as well, but our dogs get the zoomies. That means they can't stop running around like crazy. They have a couple of moments where they just go a bit off the rocker, and we call that the zoom.
They're zooming with all four of their feet.
Exactly. A little bit faster than we can with two. And so maybe it means, looking at that, it could mean that, you're in a place you're just like so super happy. Like I was now when I was traveling, and I didn't know where to look first and where to take my camera first. So I was like, zooming with my feet all over the place.
This is too fun.
Okay, there's a comment from Pilot Pete who says means that your camera has a fixed focal length and you have to use your feet to get closer or further from your subject. That is really well put.
Yay!
A really good guess, Pilot Pete. That's fantastic. And there is Jojo, I think, who says moving forward or backwards when you have a fixed lens. Excellent. Very, very good. Thank you so much for playing with us. This is really cool.
There's a good answer.
That is fantastic. I love that. Thank you, Thomas. I can pick up a sense of humor there that's similar to Ritchie and mine. You. And there's David. Hello, David. It's been a while. It's great. You here? With dog walk in Derbyshire. Derbyshire. Okay. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Derbyshire. Often the English have interesting ways how they pronounce things, where they have a shire, but they actually don't say it.
I think it's just say Sherwood Forest, and I think you're good.
Yes, that's right. Yes, absolutely. Yep. And there's Robert. Hello, Robert.
Hello.
Good to have you here. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. Give us your guess what you think it means to zoom with your feet. We've had a really cool, interesting conversation around that so far. And also some, more serious and very good explanations. Can we maybe lift the secret? Robert says to zoom with your feet is for prime users. Maybe hearing the applause means that we have a right answer, because I think it would also be quite cool to talk about this, but obviously we want to talk about it once we know exactly what it means.
Mm-hmm.
Millie's here. She says hello. Hi there. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Hey,
It's
Millie.
great to have you with us. So if I can just quickly get a nod. She's also sent us,
Yep.
guess, walk back and forth with your feet with a prime lens. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in general, we can all agree that this is close to the truth. And we have a little bit of a
Is
behind the scenes.
somebody zooming with their feet in the background there?
Yes, absolutely. Very, very unnoticeable because I need the answer on this card. And officially, the answer to this question is to get physically closer to your subject. Pilot Pete says it also means you own an version. But actually, to be very honest, I think our answers to this question, they were a lot better than the official answer. So
Yeah.
a really nice topic to quickly chat about, because the conversation between zoom lenses and fixed lenses is definitely a conversation that is also held very often. And there's no right or wrong. There's different conversations. But a lot of people say that to start out in photography, it's not a bad idea to just have one fixed lens to go, right back to basics, or to have an X100, and then to, focus on the focal length that you have on your camera. And if you need to zoom, you do that with your feet. What do you think, Ritchie? Do you think it's, for beginners, for advanced people, or what's your take on
Well, this could be a pretty lengthy discussion here, but
Yes.
I think that I personally have always been drawn to primes for their technical qualities and that kind of stuff. And I mostly use primes. I have a couple zooms, but I almost never use them. Interestingly, I'm using a zoom right now for the video. My opinion is that in art, it's good to limit yourself in some way. Like, I think limitations improve your art. Picasso said, if you have 4 elements, use 3. If you have 3 elements, use 2. Things like that. So I think prime lenses help to limit yourself in some way to really help you focus on creating what you're trying to create. However, that doesn't mean it's the best way. It doesn't mean it's the right way for you or for somebody else. Just whatever works for you, whether it's a zoom or a prime or both or neither. I don't know. But
yes, I
hope that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. Yes, it's I like the Picasso's thoughts on that. I think it's very cool, and I agree with you. I think it's quite nice, and the people who own X100s, they may agree with me on this as a revelation that I had when I got my first X100. Is it was a sense of freedom to not having to decide what lens to use, not having to decide what kind of gear. It was just, this is the camera and that's it. And then you just really focus on taking photographs. So if you're out there and you are, thinking about getting that other lens, or which lens to get, or thinking about, a lot of people say, like, I want to take these kinds of photographs, but I think I don't have the right gear and I need to invest more. And what must I save up on? If it's a matter of budget or whatever, then, maybe don't. And maybe just focus on what you have and really get to know it, learn it, and work with that. And think of it as an artistic expression.
Well, and I think also it would be interesting to know, I get asked all the time what lenses I use. It would be interesting to know the audience, what lenses do you guys use? Type it in, let us know. Type us a comment. What's your favorite lens? What lens do you not have that you would love to have, or anything like that? We'd love to know that. My favorite lens is the one I use the most is the Fujinon 27mm f2.8. I love it. Obviously, I love the lens that comes permanently attached to my X100V. And then the Fujinon 90mm f2 is right up there as well as a favorite. So, what about you, Nathalie?
Yes, very nice. Funnily enough, I end up with a 23 f2 stuck to my
Mm-hmm.
X-Pro at the moment. I am clearly an X100 user at heart, and and absolutely that was, you know, my entry level drug, as everybody calls it, and I love it. I think it's such a wonderful concept, and I really fell in love with photography all over again when I first got my X100S, and my X100F that I upgraded to was the same thing. And I think it's just the focal length that really works for me, because now that I have an X Pro 3 for, a lot of reasons, that I have other lenses that I use depending on what kind of work I shoot. When I shoot for myself, I just keep it simple, and I use the 23 focal length that just, seems to be the one that works for me. I, have other lenses with me as well, because I think I may want to use a 50mm or a 16mm, but I don't use them. So that's me. Nice and simple. I enjoy the simplicity of just focusing on taking photographs as opposed to all the gear around it. Anyway, but that's us. I really like the thought of you telling us what you shoot with. If you prefer primes over zoom lenses, or if there's a zoom lens that has stolen your heart. Whatever it is, you can tell us. You can also tell us in the main show. You don't need to think, oh my goodness, there are only 6 minutes left and there's not enough time. Torsten is saying, even though I always have 2 or 3 primes with me, I'm too lazy to change and always take pictures with a lens, so with one lens. So Torsten and I are, ticking the same way. I don't know if it's lazy or if it's just because whatever's on your camera works for you. And but thank you for sharing that. And Taikito is saying, I think once you found your focal length, it's hard to use zoom lenses for the same subjects. Yeah, yes, you have a point there. Definitely. I think you would shoot something different if you use a zoom lens. I know, because I specifically choose a zoom lens when I photograph events, for example, because I just need to be more flexible, and I love my 16-55, but privately, like I just said, I love my 23. So I think it really depends what it is that you are shooting. There is Captain Zeus.
Somebody else
who loves a 16-55. And we have a 35 f1.4 and also an X100F. Fantastic. That's great. After years of carrying heavy backpacks full of heavy DSLR ditch, just rocking my X100V and an MJU2. I don't know what that is, and I couldn't be happier. Do you know what an MJU2 is, Ritchie?
I don't. Is it? Is that that's a film camera? I think it's a film camera.
Jojo, maybe you can specify and let us know what that is. But we are very happy to hear that you couldn't be happier. So that's great. And there is an 18mm f2 that Thomas uses, and and then we have a question. And that is, how smart is it to sell my XT4 for an X100V? I use a 16-80 as I got the camera, but I feel like the X100V would be a bit better, even if the price is $1,600.
Well, I don't want to tell anybody what to do, but one thing I will say is the X100V can be hard to find. So you would hate to sell your X-T4 and then not be able to find an X100V. So you want to make sure that you have been able to locate one that you can purchase. The X100V is my desert island camera. If I could only have one, that's what it would be. At the same time, it's hard to tell somebody else to do that because it is so limiting, and you have to be willing to accept that it is so limiting, because you can't, obviously, like with your X-T4, you're going between 16 and 80 millimeters. You have a lot more flexibility. You can change lenses, all that stuff. Also, if you're doing a lot of video, the X-T4 is a lot better for video than the X100V. So
it's a bit like on polar opposites almost.
Yeah.
So it depends. It totally depends what you're using it for. It's both a really good setup.
Yes.
And
27 millimeters is my favorite too. So
yes, Taekwondo is a man of your heart, Ritchie. And there's Dan Allen. Hello, thank you so much for tuning in again. You're zooming for travel and priming it for every day. That sounds very, very smart. Oh, you're right. The FJU is a small film point and shoot. Interesting.
Yes.
Right? Oh, thank you, Torsten. An Olympus point and shoot. Very nice. Excellent. It is a great pleasure, Rashid. I do love the smaller size, but it's enough for professional work eventually. Okay.
Well, there's professionals who use it, but it depends on what you're using it for. Like Rob Morgan, I had an interview with him not too long ago. He's a bass player who travels internationally playing music, but he also does concert photography, right? And he gets hired. He does professional work. He gets hired to do album covers and album artwork and promotional material for different artists and stuff. And he uses the X100F that's his camera that he uses. So you can use it for professional in that way. I don't know that it's the most ideal, the best. It kind of depends on the person, but it is possible.
Yeah, I'm just seeing portrait photography there, so maybe shoot on 23mm for a while with your 60 and figure out if you could work with that focal length only. I mean, having said that, you've got a digital
that's a good suggestion
in the camera, but maybe you don't want to rely on that. But maybe we've given you some good food for thought there. If you have more questions, you're also obviously welcome to reach out to either of us outside of the show. But the time is ticking. Ritchie, I think it's time to say goodbye so that we can wind it down here and hop back into the main show. Just after that, thank you so much for everyone for tuning in. We will see you on the flip side. See you just now, Ritchie.
Bye.
Let's do this!
Hello, and welcome everyone to another episode of SOOC. Thank you so much for joining us. It's absolutely wonderful to be back after a bit of a long break that we've had. Thank you for understanding and for your patience that we had to take an extra week and for postponing. It is wonderful to be back here again. I hope you're doing fabulous. We have an awesome show lined up with a lot of things to discuss and talk about. If you are new today, I would like to just let you know what you've tuned into. What is SOOC? It's straight out of camera. We are discussing Fujifilm recipes that help you shoot straight out of camera, awesome JPEGs, so that you can enjoy your photography and you don't need to worry about any post-processing and enjoy live and beautiful JPEGs. So this show broadcasts once a month. On the second Thursday of every month, we are late this time around, but usually it's the second Thursday of every month. And we pick one recipe out of Fuji's Weekly's recipe and look at that in more detail. And we ask everyone to shoot with it for a month. Then share images, upload them, and then we look at them. In the following show, we had the viewer slideshow at the beginning of our pre-show. If you missed that, stick around. We will see it again at the end of this episode. I am coming to you from Johannesburg in South Africa. My name is Nathalie. I am here together with Ritchie from Fujichrome Weekly, who is joining us right now. Hello, Ritchie. How are you?
Hello, Natalie. Hi, I'm doing all right. Just got over an illness, feeling a lot better today, so that's great. And glad to be here. Glad that everyone's tuning in. And we had a great pre-show. I think a lot of interesting conversations and a lot of interactions from all those listening. Keep those comments coming. Ask us any questions. Anything that we discussed in the pre-show, we can continue it into the main show. So just keep on typing. Hello, all the way from Bangladesh. That's amazing.
Yes.
This is such a worldwide community. It always just blows my mind just how it's the one thing right now in the world bringing people together all over every country. Film simulation recipes, Fujifilm. It's just that's what the whole world should be about.
Yes.
A little bit joking here, but
photography unites the world. I absolutely love it. It does. Fantastic. It's great to see you back in color. You're looking much improved. I'm happy you got over whatever bugged you there. And we are ready to rock and roll. It's fantastic to connect with everyone. We're here for you. And if you have any questions, please do ask them in the comments. If you want to make sure that we answered your question, you can put a Q colon space, as I learned the other day, in the comments so that we can see it's a question that you would like an answer to. We will try to answer all the questions. If we don't do that straight away, don't worry. We have our team in the background looking out for all the questions, and at some point in the show, all the way to the end, we have some time to answer questions. And Pilot Pete was having Nathalie and Ritchie. Thank you so much. Thank you for sticking it out. Sorry we left you there on, I don't know, is it cold turkey or something?
Yeah.
Hi, Dan. Thanks so much.
Hi, Dan.
In from New York. It's great to have everyone here. And then we have Don Shin from Seoul in South Korea. Fantastic. Wow. I think it's
amazing.
Late by you. Or really, really early. I'm not quite sure. Late. It's late in the night. Thank you for
and we're really honored for anyone staying up till midnight or getting up at 5 a.m. or whatever it is to tune in. That is just amazing to me. I thank you everyone for taking your time to join us. But if you had to jump through extra hoops to join us, that just is it's amazing.
Yes, it gives us the zoomies.
It does give us the zoomies. For those who tune into the pre-show, you'll
Yes, and
understand.
thank you so much for the shout out, Musavir, for Ritchie and his hard work. That gives us so much joy. So thank you, Ritchie, also from me and from everyone. I'm sure everyone shares in that sentiment. But I think it's time to move on swiftly. We have, like I said, a couple of things that we would like to discuss. And as always, we're starting out with a few news. Just briefly, this month around, since it's already late in the month, we have the global hashtag campaign that Fujifilm is running. And this month, they are challenging you to share landscape photographs with them. So you can use your landscape photographs and hashtag them with 10 years of X mount and share them on the social media platforms. You stand a chance to get featured on the official Fujifilm platforms. And if you run out of ideas, then maybe it is a good challenge or project to shoot landscape photographs. And I wanted to just point out to you that if you're stuck for recipes, we discussed this in episode 4 of season 1. So that's like way back when. So you can go and check out that episode where we shared some recipes. But also, if you stick around and check the new recipe that we are announcing, I think that's also quite a nice possibility for you. So that's 10 years of X mount. And we have more news though. We have brand hot off the press. Instax launched a new printer. It's the Instax Square Link. So it prints square photographs and in the spirit of printing your photographs, because that's what you should do. A good reminder that you should always print. And this new Square Link, I don't have one yet. It was literally announced today. I don't think it's really available anywhere in the world just yet. But it seems to have some really funky features. And I'm sure that on all the different channels, these will get communicated over the next couple of weeks. You can even connect with people around the world and send messages back and forth that you write on the Instax print. So that looks really interesting. And so I'm very keen to explore it. Keep an eye out. If you're into square photographs, maybe this could be your thing. I know.
So.
Yes, you also quite like a few Instax products yourself, Ritchie. What do you think of Square?
Yeah. Well, I like Instax because not only can you share a photo pretty instantly, you can print it and give it to somebody, right? And so I have a couple of Instax cameras and I have an Instax printer, the Instax mini printer. But I think, like you said, printing your photographs is so important, and we don't do nearly enough of that as photographers. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. And one way is through, instant film and Instax and that kind of stuff. So I don't do the Square myself, although I'd be interested to try it. But I mean, anything to help people print their photos, to share their photos with other people, I think it's all very positive.
Yes, in the name of printing. I always say photos have a right to be printed. So let's do more of that. Yes. And we have even more news. And this comes straight from the home turf. The app had an update. The Fuji X Weekly app had a really awesome update. And we are here to tell you all about it. Ritchie, would you do the honors and tell us about the latest and greatest that is coming from your corners?
Sure. So the Fuji X Weekly app for iPhone got an update. We haven't finished the Android one yet, but it's in the works. But we did the iPhone first, and the main reason for that is because the vast majority of subscribers are on iPhone and on Android. So,
Okay.
so iPhone first, Android's coming down the road. So you can expect something similar in the future for those who have the Android. And this app update affects everyone, whether you're a subscriber or not. And what we've done is added widgets to the app. And I wasn't,
Yo, we're into
I
sound
wasn't,
today.
yep. I wasn't really using widgets on my phone for any app prior to this. I wasn't a big widget person, but I thought the idea was interesting. So we went through, and what you can do is add to your widgets page or your home screen all sorts of different features that allow you to interact with the app much differently, and hopefully much better, makes the experience of using the Fuji X Weekly app even better for you. And so some of the widgets are that you can have whatever the latest recipe that's been published. You can have it pop up. You just click it and you'll see the absolute latest recipe. Or you could do a widget that has whatever recipe you want. You just tap it and it'll take you right to that recipe. Or you could even display the parameters of a recipe. And then if there's another one where it has a recipe of the day, it's different for everybody. It's a recipe of the day for you, not just for everybody. So if you're ever stuck for a recipe, you're not sure what to use, that's another thing. Maybe will give you inspiration. And then if you ever find the Fuji X Weekly app to be too small, well, now there's a bigger one that's 4 times the size. You can put it on your phone. So
Just to make sure you don't miss it. So
yeah.
I am really not into widgets myself either.
Mhm.
But now since I learned about this update, and obviously knowing that, I'm going to get tested in today's show. And so I tried it, and it's taken a moment to sink in. So if you're like, now what are they doing? Just, think again and take it in for a bit, and really, play around with it, because I think there is something really, really cool and interesting happening. Especially because you don't only add it to your widget area, and this is something that I only learned now. Ritchie enlightened me that you can also use these widgets in your main pages. So you can dedicate one page or 17 pages on your phone to the app, and you can really, you can have your favorite recipe. You can have your, the recipe of the month in the settings, so that you can have everything in one look. You can have all those different setups to really have at one glance everything available to you that is necessary. So I think it's really, really cool. And in order to understand a little bit better how this all works, we thought we give you a live demo. And I will ask Ritchie to just talk us through so that we can see how exactly this works.
Okay, so you're on your widget page, right? And you can add them here. You can. This is your far left page, and on my phone at the top, I have a search bar. Is that what you have on yours? Or okay,
I would have, when I pull down, I have series suggestions, or I have the search here.
So my phone, mine's an iPhone 11, so maybe that's the difference. But mine, it looks like that with the search bar on the top. But you know how to add to yours. So do you press and hold it? Is that what you do on yours?
So I've got the search coming up when I pull down. Here, or I can press and hold, and then I get the plus.
Okay, and then plus, and so you hit the plus.
Yeah.
And then you can search for Fuji X Weekly. You could also scroll all the way down to the bottom and find Fuji X Weekly, but it's a lot easier to search for it.
Already
You
here.
tap on, yep, you tap on it, and then you have your list. You swipe through, you find the widget that you want to use. That's one newest recipe. This is the two newest recipes. This is the recipe of the day. Then the next one is whatever recipe you want. You select it, and it'll, when you tap it, it'll take you to that recipe, or this will display a recipe, whatever one you want. And then the last one is just the extra large icon. So if you go back the other way, let's say you want to pick a recipe. Let's try this one. You hit add widget, and it'll select it. It puts it in there, and you have to tap and hold on it to then select a recipe. You may have to get out of where it's wiggly. Okay. So then you tap and hold, and then you hit choose. And then you find the recipe you want. You can search for it by name. We could do the Sensia 100. And then tap out of that. And boom, there it is, displayed for you. All the parameters of the recipe.
There we go.
So then you can also do the same thing on any of your other pages. So if you swipe, so on any of these pages, and you can add as many widgets as you want. You can add 40 widgets if you wanted to, or one, or however many. But it's the same thing. You tap and hold anywhere, not on an icon, but anywhere else on the page. You hit the plus, and you just go through the same process, searching for the Fuji X Weekly. Comes up really quick. If you wanted to do newest recipe or whatever one you want to use, you just find it and tap add widget. And there it is. Those are the two newest recipes. So there it is.
Thank you. This is really cool, and I think people like it already. A lot of people commenting that they like the update. Like I said, I also think it's really awesome, and it makes your phone look really nice and different, and you can, swap and change, and it's really easy and nice to navigate. So yeah, have some fun with it, and share with us if you do what you think and what you do and how your phone looks after you've played around with the widget. Jojo,
well, thank you, Jojo, for those kind words.
Couldn't thank you enough for the app. Ooh, can we have that comment back, please? Couldn't thank you enough. Thank you for the app and recipes. They are so good. More often than not, come back to Portra 400 version 1 with my black promised fitted on, and it's heavenly. So yeah, thanks so much. Well, this is the show for you. Thank you.
Yes. Yay. Yeah, because that's what we're shooting with.
Yes. Okay, there's a little bit of pressure building up. Thomas is waiting for update. It's coming, Thomas. It's coming.
It's coming. It's in the works. All this stuff. I don't know if people really realize like how far back we start on something before it actually comes out. It's a lot of work to actually get these things done. But the feedback has been so positive on this one that I'm just really happy to get it out there and that people are using it and loving it and all that stuff. And that Fuji X Weekly is taking over people's iPhones,
Yes. First the iPhone, then the world.
Then the world. Yep.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ritchie. I know it's, well, you say, and I can only believe that it's a lot of work. So thank you for that. With us.
Lots of sound effects today.
Yes, definitely. All right. Excellent. But let's move on. We have a tip of the day for you. We
Yay.
always try and look at something in particular that we can elaborate on, something that has to do with the recipes. A lot of people ask. So we thought that, today we'll have a closer look at dynamic range. You're more than welcome to ask us questions regarding that or other details of a recipe. The dynamic range that we're talking about, is as you may know, if you use recipes already, that it's part of the settings in a recipe. But dynamic range in general is a thing. And we've prepared 2 pictures for you that we would like to have a look at and, have a bit of a closer look as to exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I guess before we get too far into this, maybe just to briefly explain that the Fujifilm cameras have 4 settings. DR Auto, which chooses between DR100 and DR200 and never selects DR400. So that's one. Then you have DR100, DR200, and DR400. So those are the 4 options. There's also D-range priority. That's a whole different discussion for a whole different day. But we're just going to talk about DR100, DR200, DR400, and I guess throw in there DR Auto for the fun of it. And it's ISO dependent. So depending on the camera, it depends exactly what the ISO parameters are. But DR 400, it's ISO 800 on the older models and 640 on the newer models, and it may be something different on X-Trans 5. I'm not sure. And then DR 200 is ISO 400 or ISO 320, and then DR 100 is ISO 200 or 160, depending on your model, as the minimum ISO.
Yes. So just to also clarify, so we're talking about the different settings that you can have in your camera in order for it to be more or less sensitive to the amount of information between the darkest shadows and the brightest highlights. So with the dynamic range of 100, you don't get as much information in the shadows and in the highlights as you do with 400. So
yeah, and it mostly affects the highlights. It specifically, it brings down the highlights, and kind of like adjusts the top of the curve. It does affect the midtones and the shadows just slightly. It's really hard to tell, but it does reduce the contrast just a little bit throughout the whole image. But mostly the number one thing that's affected is the highlights.
Yes, exactly. So, so this is what we are looking at. So we've got the sample image here that Ritchie has kindly made available, and we are looking in the highlights area in particular. So this is the image. This was shot at dynamic range of 100. Correct, Ritchie? And then we are.
So this is the Kodak Portra 400 recipe. That's the current recipe of the month, except for I set the DR to DR100. The YouTube, the software does blow out the highlights a little more than they actually are. The highlights are blown a little bit in the image. This exaggerates it, the software, but you can clearly see that top left corner that the highlights are blown out, and this is with DR100.
So you have the option to shoot at a DR400, and if so, then you have this image, which is a slight but a difference. And
yeah, and it may still look a little blown out. It's not. Even the DR200. We were going to add that one in there to show DR100, DR200, DR400, but the differences were so subtle that you couldn't even notice. Yes. So we decided just to go to the extremes, DR100, DR400, and then you could kind of a little bit better see the difference. And so you see the highlights are pulled down a little bit. They're much better controlled. I think in this case, the DR200 would actually be the best because it just barely prevents the highlights from clipping, but they're almost there. The DR400 almost brings it down, maybe slightly too much almost, but it's hard to tell on the screen here. And do let us know, do you see the difference? Do you see the difference between DR100 and DR400?
Yes.
Can you notice that on the screen,
Yes. So
out there?
Oh, and if you can also maybe take away that it's a really good exercise to do at home so that you can see these are the settings in the recipe, but how do they actually affect your image? So I challenge you to take the recipe and then actively, as you take the picture, change the dynamic range only, and then you can compare the JPEGs afterwards. It will make it very obvious to see what actually changes in the picture. It's a really good exercise. It's fun, and if you do it yourself and you see the difference, you won't forget. Thomas is saying most sims work well with ISO 800, and then you can do a DR 400. That is correct. So what Ritchie was saying is that if you shoot, you will maybe notice that if you want to convert a raw file in your camera into a different recipe, and you shot with DR Auto, for example, and it used, it then baked in DR 100 into the recipe, you will not be able to convert it into DR 400 afterwards.
You can only go down. You can't go up.
Yes, correct.
So if you start with DR400, you can reprocess it later as DR200 or DR100. But if you do DR100, you can never go to DR200 or DR400 later.
Yeah, correct. So this is all in order mostly to get more information into the highlights. And this is what it's all about. There is one question that I would like to throw at you, Ritchie, just quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we always shoot with DR400?
That's a good question. So the DR is one of the tools that we have to get the contrast curve the way we want it. And so we have highlight, we have shadow, we have the DR. If you have a newer camera, color chrome effect, a color chrome effect blue also add to that, clarity. Those are all things that kind of all work together. And then the different looks we're trying to get, sometimes, they're often modeled after film stocks. And so some film stocks have a very large latitude. Some have a very narrow latitude. And so we're trying to kind of mimic those things. You can always shoot in DR400 if you want. There's no recipe police, so to speak, that is telling you can never, if it says DR200, you always have to use DR200. You can use DR400, season the taste, the recipe, if you prefer it that way. But yeah, that's basically the answer, is that it's just one of many tools that we're using to try and get the contrast curve to be what we want it to be.
Excellent. Thank you. Fantastic. I think that, might be quite useful information for everyone. Go and season to taste and try it out and share with us your thoughts. And here we are, recipes for day. Our recipes are for a special occasion. I was inspired by the rainy season having started in my parts of the world. We've been waiting for quite some time. It's been super dry, and everyone is always, on edge at this time of the year because we haven't had any rains for months on end. It's very dry. And then when the first rains fall, it always is, a song and dance in some parts. People actually go onto the street and dance in the rain. And so I thought it's really cool to look at recipes that would look good if you're shooting on a rainy day. And we got so inspired that we thought we will share 4 recipes with you today. We have something for every sensor, as always. We try to make sure that you definitely find something that works on your camera. And we start off with the latest and then end up with Extrons 2 with the fourth recipe. But first up, we are suggesting the recipe Kodak High Definition plus 200 for the latest Extrons 4 sensors. What is so special about this recipe that it makes images in a rainy day look so good? Is there any points that you can point out, Ritchie?
Well, so this recipe was modeled after some prints I have in a photo box. And it turns out I was able to find the negatives and figure out what film was used and the paper that was printed on and all that kind of stuff. But I think it has kind of it leans towards green. And then on those rainy, thick overcast days, it just has a really nice rendering when, the sun is not out. The clouds are very gray, and you got a little bit of wetness on the ground and everything. It just looks really nice.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as it actually says, high definition, I think it adds, more. I use the word clarity now, just in a neutral way. It adds some clarity to an image. I find it makes it more like cleaner almost, not like washed out as the area actually is. So if you have an X-Trans 4 camera, you can try it out and see for yourself if you like it. Here's a comment from Takido. He says, I like to set my ISO to 1000 in daylight. This is obviously a comment still to the previous, to our dynamic range, but that's cool.
Yeah.
I set it to 1000 in daylight in a situation, and then DR400 helps me to protect my highlights. Yes, that I think
that's a good. Yeah, it's a good strategy, and a lot of people are afraid to go that high in ISO, and I'm like, that's not anything. If you really look at, like, for example, if you were to compare an ISO, 200 to an ISO 1000 and put them side by side, from your Fujifilm camera, you're actually going to have a hard time noticing the difference. You're going to have a hard time spotting the digital noise that's there. And if you do spot it, it's still going to look really nice because Fujifilm does a great job with their digital noise, thanks to the X-Trans sensor. And, you could go up a lot higher than that in ISO and it's still going to look really good. So I think that's a really good strategy.
Yes, exactly. All right. And Dan Allen is bringing us back to our rainy day recipes. He says, Fuji Superior Extra 400 recipe is my favorite for rainy days.
Oh, that's awesome.
This is really interesting. I had a look at that as well, and I shot a little bit with it. And yeah, for some reason, it didn't do it for me, but maybe I didn't give it enough of a chance. I will definitely have another look at that. Thank you, Dan.
You'll have opportunities.
Yes, I have. Is at the moment almost daily. But here, nice and big, because it is, I believe, someone's favorite recipe, is the Fuji Color Superior 800.
Yeah, so this is my personal, yay! This is my personal favorite film simulation recipe for rainy days. Fuji Color Superior 800. This is the old one, the X-Trans 3 recipe, not the new one that uses classic negative. This one uses Pro Negative Standard. If you do have a newer camera, you can still use this recipe even though it says X-Trans 3. You just have to set clarity to 0, color chrome effect to color chrome effect blue to off, and you have to choose your grain size. You have to make a decision on that, either small or large. But yeah, this recipe, if it's rainy, this is the one that I prefer to use.
Yes, we definitely like that recipe. It's come up here and there in our different conversations and different episodes. It's definitely a wonderful recipe to try out. Here's Torsten. He is jumping in and wants to talk about clarity. It doesn't work for street photography. I always turn it off because I lose snapshot moments with it. Yes, absolutely. We know about the lag in clarity. That's what Torsten is talking about. Luckily,
Yeah, I guess a couple interesting points. The amount of time it takes to store the file is about the same amount of time it takes to wind to the next frame on a film camera. And also, if you have like the older GFX cameras, the 50S, the 50R, even though they don't have clarity, they have a similar lag that's to clarity.
mm,
So I personally like to use that moment to slow me down. You're trying, you have to be more in tune with the decisive moment, so to speak, when using it for street photography. Because I use clarity when I do street photography. I also use it on like a whale watching um, tour, and I thought it was going to be a big problem. That I was going to miss the moments because of the storing thing, but it turned out not to be too big of a problem. But there is no problem with shutting it off. And the easiest way to do that is to put it into one of the burst modes, and instead of single shot, and it'll automatically disable clarity. And then you can, if you shoot RAW plus JPEG, you could go back in later and add it if you want, either in camera or with XRAW Studio.
Dan and you tick at exactly the same time in exactly the same way, because this is the comment that Dan just made that you.
Oh yeah.
Well, thank you, Dan.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Hi, Justin. Great to have you with us as well. For everybody who does not know Justin, he also cooks his own recipes as well. So it's really nice to have you here. He thinks Superior 800 is a good choice. Yes, it is. So because it adds warmth to your image, I think it makes the atmosphere like really nice. It makes it a cozy rainy day, so to say.
Yeah, and in his website, I believe it's called film.recipes, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's his website. If you're looking for more,
Yeah.
he's got a bunch on there.
Yeah. Yes, no shortage of recipes all around. But let's just look what else we've got there. We also have, for the Extrons 2 sensors, we've got scan negative. So that is, if I can just call it a stripped down version, because it's for the older models, so there are less settings to choose. Would you say you can also use this on newer models? I mean, without, obviously you turn the other settings off. Would it change the look of the recipe drastically?
It would change the look of the recipe. You can use, technically you could use it. But like X-Shreds 2 is like a warmer, the rendering is a little bit warmer. The highlight and shadow is a little different in how it renders. So you can technically use it. It will look different. You could also use this on, an XE1 or X Pro 1. You could use it on a Bayer camera, but you just have to know that it will render slightly different. It doesn't mean that it'll render poorly. It just means it'll be a little bit different. So it's something to try.
Yes. So I thought the way the rainy pictures looked, it just gave it a very neutral look. I really enjoyed the more, again, a more cleaned up, more minimal, less warm look to the images. So I really enjoyed that. So I suggest you give that a try. And then we have skipped over the Ektachrome recipe that is for X-Trans 3 and the older X-Trans 4 cameras, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, X-Trans 3, XT3, XT30, yeah.
Yes. And that is also something to try. So there is no shortage in making your rainy day pictures less drab. I, thought of a rainy day being usually more washed out, colder, gloomier. So anything that lifts the temperature and makes it a bit more punchy would be a nice recipe to use on a rainy day.
Mm-hmm.
So
Awesome.
give those a try and let us know how you fare.
Mm-hmm. So then, yeah, next time it's a raining, pouring rain outside, as long as you have a weather sealed camera, put one of those recipes in and take it out.
Yes.
Be very careful if it's not weather sealed.
Yes. Are there any questions in the audience regarding this or anything else? We are here to answer anything and everything that's pressing that you would like to discuss. If you really want us to, make sure that we answer the question, then make sure that you add a Q in the comment. But here's Thomas with a comment. He says, any chance you get a cinematic negative on my X-T2? I fell in love with the sim.
So yeah, that's an interesting question. So I published that very recently, and it's got a lot of positive feedback, and I'm very happy about that. I think it could be possible to get something kind of similar. So sometimes Pro Negative Standard can stand in for Eterna, which is what the Cinematic Negative uses. It's not exactly the same, but it has kind of some of the same qualities. So, for example, there's an Eterna recipe that uses the Eterna film simulation, and then I was able to replicate it fairly accurately using Pro Negative Standard for those cameras that don't have Eterna. But at the same time, I also tried to do a Pro Negative Standard version of the Kodak Vision 3250D recipe, and I wasn't able to get a good look for that. I tried really hard. I worked with Thomas Schwab even to try and see if we could figure it out, and we just weren't able to do it. So I guess the answer is there's a possibility of it, but not a guarantee of it. And so on something
So it's a work in progress.
Work in progress.
Excellent. But I think we have spoken enough tech talk for a moment, and we should take a little bit of time to celebrate our community. And it's time to welcome our guest, who's, I'm sure, been like at the edge of a seat because we're about 20 minutes later than we anticipated. So it is a great honor to welcome our live guest today. Stephen Wells is coming and joining us from Portland, Maine in the USA. He's a hobbyist photographer, and he loves to surf. He picked up photography to challenge the right side of his brain, he says. He owns a lot of different cameras, and he also shoots film, which I think is really interesting, alongside of digital and Fujifilm recipes. He is a very dedicated follower of the show. He has been joining us every month since the very first episode in season 1. So we are super excited to have him here today. Please put your hands together and let's welcome Stephen Wells.
Hello, Stephen.
Thank you.
It's so good to have you with us. How are you doing?
Oh, well, I just took the extra 20 minutes to get widgets on my phone. So that's great.
There you go.
Well, this is what I call making lemonade. Excellent.
Yeah.
Right.
We are sorry to keep you waiting. Thank you for sticking around. It is a great pleasure to have you. And
A real honor.
It's wonderful that you can meet the SOOC audience and, just share a little bit with us how you, came across recipes, what you shoot, and why you shoot with Ritchie's recipes.
Yeah, sure. No, thanks for having me. I'm the one that should be honored. I have been watching this show for quite a while, and to find myself on this side of the screen, I guess, is quite shocking, but also pretty awesome. Yeah, so I started a long time ago with an old film camera, and and that started right before the digital, um, renaissance, if you will, or whatever you want to call it. It became a digital doldrums to me because I got one of the early digital cameras, and things got quite boring from there. And then I found myself shooting more film. Picked up some old film cameras that I had when COVID started, and started shooting a lot more again, just to, like a lot of us needed that distraction. Um, I had been shooting, like I said, digital for quite a while, and I still do shoot different digital cameras. For my ocean photography, I still shoot Sony because that's what I have a housing for. But that requires coming home and sitting down and doing Lightroom. And I'm really new to Lightroom and post processing. I had been shooting all JPEG forever, but old Sony cameras and my Canon digital cameras, they were all just, the JPEGs were flat and really uninspiring. And then I had a mentor that mentioned he had picked up an X100V and said, like many of us, wow, holding this camera, it's like holding an old film camera. It's like an old friend. And, the JPEGs coming out of it because of the film films just created this film, like not only experience, like tactile experience of holding the camera, but the images coming out were really amazing. And then almost blew my mind when I was pointed by a friend to Fuji X Weekly. And like many of us, mind exploded. And all of a sudden, I think I read somewhere, maybe Ritchie had said it, Fuji X Weekly are the film sums, and then the recipes themselves are like, it's like having a camera bag full of 100 different film stocks, in your bag. And it's just really opened up a whole new, sort of perspective on digital photography for me, and really kind of saved me, like I mentioned earlier, from that digital doldrums that I was in. And the time, I think all of us in this community owe a huge thank you to Ritchie for all the time savings he's provided, and to Nathalie for hosting this show with Ritchie to, let us all have this community where we can chat. So thank you both.
Well, thank you. Very, very, very kind words.
Yes.
Yeah, I did say that on the Fujifilm X100V review that I did. I said it's like having endless rolls of film, as many as you want, that you can change anytime you want, and then you don't have to worry about sending it off to be processed or anything like that.
Yeah, last month a user had commented on the price of Portra 400, which I've never shot Portra 400 as film. It's one of the few stocks that I haven't. But because I think they had mentioned 3 rolls of film were like $85, and that doesn't include the 20 to 25 for developing and scanning if you don't do that at home. So it's $150, 3-roll experience. And having this, it's incredible because I've compared between Portra 400 film and then the recipe. I mean, it's pretty incredible how similar they are. And at the end of the day, even film, when you get it scanned, it's digital, right? So we all end up at the same place for the most part.
I absolutely love that, and I mentioned it to you during our dry run yesterday. I said to Stephen that I think an extremely interesting angle for me is that you still today you shoot digital and film, and you can compare the two. Ritchie also has film that he's shot, and then he goes back to really compare what you get on Fujifilm camera versus the real film. But I think if you really shoot side by side and look at it and have that experience, I think it's just really interesting to validate how great the recipes really are. Not that anyone here doubts that, but just to have that experience is really interesting. And so that you share and volunteer that information is really awesome. It's really
Thank you.
And to take course, that. Oh no, go ahead,
Richie.
Stephen.
Well, I was going to
Oh, I
say
was
to
just
take
gonna
that a
say
step. Yeah, go. I'm going to give that to
we're
Ritchie.
both going at the same time. Yay! Yeah, no, yeah. I was gonna say,
Exciting.
like, just depending on how you shoot a film stock, how you develop it, how you scan it, all affects the aesthetic of it. Even like something like the pH balance of the water or something like that or the temperature of the water when you're developing it can all, how old the chemicals are and all that stuff can affect it in a little way. Um, but I do, really appreciate it when I hear like, the recipe is, fairly close to the film stock. It's, I always hope to try and, accomplish that. And I'm comparing and you have limited tools within the Fujifilm cameras. It's not like Lightroom where you have unlimited tools almost, but, within that, I'm trying really hard to get it to be a fairly close match. And so to hear, an experience of like, yeah, this is a pretty close match is just, I love hearing that kind of stuff.
I think I can echo what a lot of our viewers are thinking. I mean, I think what you do, Ritchie, as far as matching as closely as you can, given all those variables, it's like voodoo. I don't know how you do it, and it truly is miraculous. And and then you also have, I mean, you can play with the ISO a bit, or there are all kinds of different, that's going to throw that off, or make it different. So I also want to mention, like, one beautiful thing with going mirrorless and the Fuji film cameras and these recipes is the ability to use vintage lenses. And
Oh, yeah.
Ritchie, you do a great job in introducing sort of the use of those vintage lenses. And I probably would say I like to think of myself more as a camera geek, perhaps, and I am a photography enthusiast because I just love using cameras, and I have an enormous collection of film cameras and lenses. And there's nothing more that I love than switching and using different lenses, because every one of those, to add to your earlier comment on the different variables, the different glass you put in front of the camera is going to give you different results as well. I mean, put an old Pentax with thorium in front of, a Fujifilm camera, you're going to get a very different look than if you use, the 35-1.4 Fujifilm lens. So it's just so
what
many
lenses, what lenses are your favorite to use?
I mean, that changes daily, but my current favorite is, and I stumbled on this just reading your blog, the Pentax Auto 110, the 50 millimeter. The mini lens, tiny. So
those are so fun.
Oh my goodness, it's incredible that little piece of glass can create such an awesome image, and then the flares that result. It's really, really neat. I highly recommend, if no one's tried that, buy these cheap adapters and just play with them, because it's another level of creativity.
And for those who don't know, is that Pentax made the world's smallest interchangeable lens camera back in like the late 70s and early 80s. And it was the Pentax 110 Auto or 110 cameras. But the lenses can be adapted. They're really tiny lenses, and they can be adapted, and they will work on your Fujifilm APS-C camera. And the results are very, very interesting.
Very cool.
Nice. Well, you guys, your enthusiasm is so infectious. It's really, really cool. I love it. I would like to have a look at some of the images, though, that Steven's prepared for us, because we want to see kind of like, where he's at with the recipes. So I think knowing where you came from and then stumbled across the recipes, and now here you are shooting fabulous stuff. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what we're looking at here?
So Kodak Gold I use a lot. It's very much a consumer grade film, and I love it also on the Fujifilm in digital. And this is my son, one of my favorite scenes here. It's often punctuated with a couple middle fingers. And but this, looking north on this beach, is where my family and I sit often. So Kodak Gold I probably use 65% of the time when we don't have a monthly assignment from Nathalie and Ritchie through the show. And I just love the warmth, and really, really a big fan of this recipe. And this is a project. I think it's always good to have a project in the back of your mind for your photography to give you some focus. Someone told me that a long time ago, and whether it goes anywhere or not, that's another matter. But this is a project I call the finger.
I wonder why.
Mhm.
Nice, very nice. Yeah, I myself am also a big fan of projects. I think it definitely is something that I can recommend to everyone and anyone. I know as a working professional, I turned to personal projects when I picked up my first Fujifilm camera, and it saved me. So I can only recommend diving into that, whether it's a finger or two or whatever it is. It really doesn't matter. But just getting started. And yeah, Kodak Gold. We discussed that in the last episode of last season. So that was in December. That was episode 7, I think, or 8, and then again in the first episode of this year. So if you want to learn a little bit more about it, you can tune into those episodes. But I think back to you, Stephen. What else is in store here? We've got some more images we can feast our eyes on.
And this is another project I'm working on that's I call Beach People and Their Things. So I'm trying to use the same camera, which is the X100V here, Kodak Gold, and the same framing for every shot. I've actually cropped this one to make this horizontal just for a little bit better look here for the show. But I try to frame everyone the same way, and it's sort of like beach street photography. So I'm kind of throwing the X100V up, which is perfect for this, snapping the photo, and this is what I'm getting. So it's incredible and a beautiful thing too to see how dedicated people are at the beach to building a little village when they come. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I love this image too.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I love the thought. Could you call it photography?
I don't know, beach street photography. So it's sort of throw the camera up and hope for the best without disrupting the subject. So yeah,
That's very
that's
cool.
fun.
Nice work.
And by far my favorite black and white recipe is Tri-X 400. It's just an incredible film, and this recipe mimics it really well. This is a shot from a camping trip I was on not too long ago. I mean, this was in near pitch black using the X100V handheld, and I dialed the ISO I think to 12800, and the grain. I saw, I think maybe Takedo. He had made a comment earlier about liking the grain or the noise. And Fujifilm I think handles the noise really well, and it doesn't bother me at all. And this, I was sitting next to someone with a Sony, and they were struggling and shocked at how well my images were rendering directly out of camera. And I know he went back home and probably sat for an hour trying to get his pictures to look right. Whereas I ordered this directly to my phone, and we were looking at it in the bunkhouse 10 minutes later. So, yeah,
Nice.
yeah, brilliant.
Very nice. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
And the Kodak Tri-X 400 recipe is a personal favorite of mine. I didn't create it, and we did talk about it earlier this year. Do you remember which episode, Nathalie?
Yes, that was? In episode 1. That's why I think it's so cool, because we had those 2 recipes that we discussed in the same show. That's how we started season 2 this year. So perfect.
Yeah. Your influence is noticeable here.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah. So if you missed that episode, go and check it out. Yeah. Very, very nice work. This is brilliant stuff. Lots of inspiration and food for thought. I love, your creativity on the projects that you set yourself. So well done for that.
Thank you.
Maria Epp is here and saying, thank you. I'll take my X100V and the awesome recipes to my weekend trip in Scotland tomorrow. Curious to see which
Ooh.
shot I can do there. I think black and white will be the best. Well, dial in some Kodak Tri-X400. You can't go wrong with that one. And
Or one of the rainy day, maybe.
yes,
Yep.
Perhaps.
yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. We, don't forget about what we usually set out to do, and that is we had you all work on Kodak Portra 400 for quite a lengthy time. You've almost had double the time. I think that's not a problem with Kodak Portra 400. You can, I think most of us agree here that you don't get tired of shooting with it.
No, it's a favorite recipe for a lot of people.
Yes. So just as well that this one got the benefit of our extended time. And Stephen, you've prepared some images for us to share your thoughts on it and what you enjoyed. So, please go right ahead and dive in and tell us what you
Yeah. So after using Portra 400, I have to say it's definitely arm wrestling Kodak Gold as my my most desired recipe for sure. It's really versatile. Just is a nice, just easy going recipe in film. And this is, I threw this in there just to show like one of my favorite subjects definitely is surfers, the ocean. I one of my other things is floating in the ocean with a housing. That I do with my Sony camera because that's the only camera I have an ocean housing for. But this one, I love the energy here, and I think Portra 400. This was like a really foggy gray day, and I really think Portra 400 handled it really nicely. Maybe it should have been Fuji Color Superior 800, which it might have been had I shot this after today's show. But this is, I think it handled it really well. It's such a versatile film stock.
And I want to point out that, because of the limitations of the software and YouTube and stuff, it may look like the highlights are blown out, but I promise you they're not.
Yes.
There is actually, you're right. There is a lighthouse in that upper left. You can see barely in the distance, but not here. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Get the idea.
Definitely.
And this I threw in because it's the absolute last shot in my film roll, if you will, on my X100V that I dragged up a little hill for a sunrise a couple days ago, and this was the last shot I took, and it's been raining since, so I just love this shot. It's just I had the camera, so the best camera is the camera you have, and I was lucky that Portra 400 was loaded up on it and shot this pretty much from the hip, and that's what I got. And I think this to me represents how great the X100 is and Fujifilm in this recipe.
Yeah, I love the atmosphere in it, and it's the texture, the layers. It's such a beautiful image.
Yes,
Thank you.
The mood is what gets to me, which is really nice. Really, really nice images, and a good application on Kodak Portra 400. There's Mario again, and he says a rainy day will fit great. Yes. The pictures of
This is a good thing we had this show.
Really,
right.
really. Yes, the show was just in time for Mario, so that's fantastic. And Stephen, can I just ask you? So now that you've concluded shooting with Portra 400, what you said it's wrestling with Kodak Gold. What is there anything that you can pinpoint that you like the most about the recipe?
Well, Portra, Portra, and Ritchie pointed this out, and it was made as a portrait film, and I think it really handles skin tones really well. Obviously, it's what it was made for, but it's a really neutral recipe, I think, and I am not trained as a photographer. I don't know all the right terms, but to me, it is really just well balanced and neutral, Kodak Gold, I think, has a little more edge to it, a little bit more warmth. And I would argue maybe Kodak Gold is a little bit more fun than Portra 400. I know that's not technical at all, but to me, Kodak Gold is a little bit more fun. But Portra, I think, just is a really nice recipe. And I think there are times to use them both. And I think everybody has to sort of resolve that for themselves, which one they want to use when. But if I only had 2 to load on my camera, or I'd actually have to be 3, it'd be Portra, I'd be Gold, and Tri-X, I think. And I'd be a happy person.
Very, very.
I was really pleased with the
There's David, a previous guest of ours, who
you.
says, "Welcome, Stephen. You're a great and knowledgeable guest. Thank you for sharing your great images. Your surf photography is superb."
It really is. And I encourage everyone to go find Stephen on Instagram and look at his pictures.
Yes, definitely. Go do that. We've got his handle to share with you before we say goodbye. So do look at his imagery. You can go to @Stephen.wells on Instagram. Don't be shy with liking and saving and sharing.
Following.
Yes, all those good things that we love so very much. Fantastic. Well, it's been a real great pleasure to have you. An absolute delight. I love your energy. I love your enthusiasm. It's been a fantastic conversation. We could carry on for days.
We could. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been absolutely wonderful. Everyone in the audience, another big round of applause for.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the hard work, for the last minute prep, and for diving in the deep end. Please share with everyone when you've recovered from this experience. Please tell them that it isn't as daunting and scary, hopefully, as it may seem. But we absolutely love to connect with people from around the world. I think we're in an absolutely privileged situation to be able to, connect with from around the world and get to know people better and see what they shoot and what they do. So it's just, my
shout out to that. I mean,
right now.
For anyone wanting to do this in the future, I'll just give a shout out that Nathalie and Ritchie and then Stanley in the background make this really, really, really easy and a pleasure. So that's my plea to everyone. Join in the future.
It's hard, but it's time to say goodbye. So thank you so much. Don't go too far away.
Indeed.
And all the best and thanks again.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye.
Thanks, Stephen. Oh, that was a lot of fun.
Yes, that was absolutely fantastic. It's always great to connect. Maybe we need to do just a separate episode where we just connect with the audience so we can,
Absolutely. It's such a great community, and there's so many people that have a story to tell. Everybody's got a story to tell. And I think the more that we can connect, the better. It helps the community become stronger and really not just become a community because we shoot Fujifilm, but become a community because we are friends,
Oh, yes. Well, that would be awesome. And it's also about the fact that, it's not, we're doing the show so that, everyone can benefit. It's not one day we said, oh, we definitely want to be in front of the camera and we want to, talk ourselves and show our images.
Yeah, definitely not me. I got to tell you, this is so far outside of my comfort zone. We do this for the benefit of the audience, for you guys watching.
Yes.
And we don't get, anything out of it, as far as like nobody's paying us to do this, or we're not financially benefiting. We're not promoting ourselves, but we're doing it to bring everybody together and to help you guys. So I hope that you find this beneficial or entertaining or something,
Yes.
and worth your time.
And a place where you can get your question answers. Like Trevor, for
Yes.
example, he says he likes to use the Kodak Portra 400 warm recipe. However, he's got difficulty saving the white balance setting to 5500. Is there a way to save it so I don't have to adjust when I switch? So I assume he is shooting with a camera that doesn't save the white balance shift in the recipe.
Yeah. So you should be able to save, no matter your camera, you should be able to save the 5500 Kelvin in there. But the shift, if your camera is older than an X Pro 3, you can't save the shift in your C1 through C7 custom presets. You can only have one shift per white balance type in there. So if you have two, if C1 is a Kelvin recipe and C2 is a Kelvin recipe, you can only have one shift, which you don't save in the C1 through C7 custom presets menu. You actually have to go to the white balance sub menu in your image quality menu and adjust it there. If that makes any sense.
Yes.
I hope that makes sense.
If this is the question that you want to have answered, then we hope this helps. Yeah. But I think I completely forgot about the fact that we have got some viewers' images to look
Yes.
at. We got so carried away. We've got a job to do here, Ritchie. So we ask you to share images with us in case you're not familiar with our format. And we show the images at the beginning and at the end of each show in a slideshow. Since it's too many that we receive to look at all of them during the show. However, we pick a few that we think, are worthy of mention because of the way the recipe has been used in those shots. Or they show a certain quality of the recipe that we think is worth highlighting. It is by no means a crit, so don't take it as that. It is totally uncompetitive and merely a way of sharing and for the audience to see different types of images and different ways a recipe has been used. And please stick around until the end of the show and watch all the images in the slideshow if you haven't seen it at the beginning. But let's have a look at some Kodak Portra 400 from some of our viewers. And thank you for uploading and sharing. And we kind of go back and forth between Rich and I as we chose the different images that we like. So what is it that you like about the image that Robert shared with us?
Well, it's very industrial, and I like the balance of the locomotive being on the right and the crane being on the left and the top. But what got my attention was actually the green and how this recipe renders the green of the locomotive in this beautiful lighting. And also, I always look at the skies. We always talk about the skies and the cyan skies and stuff like that. and I like how it's also was rendered in this photograph. So I think this recipe or this picture does well to demonstrate this recipe and that softer evening light, or it's a reflected light maybe off of a building or something. I'm not sure. But that the green of the locomotive just looks wonderful.
Yes, really nice. And what I like is how the green repeats not only in the top left of the image, but also in the hole at the bottom left.
On the left. Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
this is really...
It's a nice little surprise.
Yeah.
I heard once, they get a little off track here, but I heard once that every great picture has a little surprise somewhere, right? and for the viewer to discover, and to me that's the surprise in this picture is that little hole.
Yes. Yeah, nice. Well done. Thank you, Robert, for sharing that image with us. Let's have a look at the next image that was sent in by Jerry Rosenzweig. He has not uploaded before, so that's always very exciting. Thank you so much for your submission. I absolutely love the mood of this image. I think what makes it really interesting for me to share with everyone is that there is, I think, probably every color under the sun in the background. So it's a nice representation of how Kodak Portra 400 renders different colors. This is why I chose it, and it's obviously, a really cool scene and a nicely executed image in general.
And it definitely makes you wonder the story of
Yeah.
why this person is sitting there. He looks like he's dressed pretty nicely,
Mm.
He's just sitting here on this, pallet or wood of some sort, is watching the pumpkins. There's obviously a story there, and
Yeah.
it just leaves you with a lot of questions. And that's always fun
Yeah.
when you have a photograph that leaves you with questions.
Yeah. Lots of things to explore. Books can be written about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really, really nicely captured. Thank you, Jerry. Let's move on to the next, which is not
The
the
last image, but it's not the last image. Bjorn, he was our guest, and he's got some different projects going on, and I wonder if this is part of one of his projects, but it's obviously got lots of warm colors, and then also the blue, um, but just kind of a curious, why are these cars hanging from a clothespin, and and why does it say last, and all this fun stuff. So but you can see how the recipe renders, the reds and the oranges and blues and everything from this picture.
Yes. Yeah. Really nice, fun image. Interesting. Where he finds all these different scenes. Nice stuff.
Yeah.
Excellent. And then we have a submission from Kendra, who's also not the first time here. So thank you so much for submitting that image. I just absolutely love the scene. I think it's wonderful. It's so inviting, and the colors are so nice and clean and polished. And I just love the mood of this image of, a very everyday kind of normal scene, I guess, if you live in this beautiful part of the world. So that's why I chose this.
it and it just looks like, a print that you would have, like it has that film kind of quality to it.
Yes, definitely, 100%. So thank you very much for sharing that with us, Kendra. Fantastic image.
And then Richard submitted this picture of a boat. I like how it shows the red, and the little bit of blue. You see a little bit of that blue in there. The water maybe is a little murky. And the boat looks like it's maybe not used often or abandoned, maybe even, but the rope looks like it's in good condition. So I'm not sure what the story is. Again, we always have more questions than we have answers, in some of these images.
Yes, yeah. I've
But
definitely seen better days, this boat.
yeah, but it's a very nice, capture, and the lighting is really good, and you can see how this recipe does in that scenario.
Yeah. Yes, fantastic. A really nice travel photograph,
Hmm.
I could imagine. So, yeah, a good a good recipe to load if you're going traveling, I guess.
Hmm.
And then we have another image, and that is from Peter. Again, we tend to choose images with different colors, or at least this is what turned out this month. I absolutely love how this image stands out, and especially like on the left edge of the building, you see a reflection of the cloud, and yeah, I think it's so neat the way this is captured. So it really caught
And
my.
that's the surprise that, we
Mhm.
talk about pictures having a little surprise for the viewer to discover, and that
Yeah.
cloud reflection is
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, so there's definitely enough and information, enough different things to keep your eye wandering over it, which makes
Hmm.
it interesting. So, yeah, nice. Nice. Thank you, Peter.
Yes.
Thank you so much. our featured image, which we choose because we think it's a particularly well executed image for the particular recipe that we're looking at. And who can resist cyan skies, Ritchie?
Mhm. And I want to point out, I know we pointed out this a few times in the show, but just point out again that the highlights are not blown out in the image. It's just a result of the limitations of the software we're using in the YouTube and all that stuff. So ignore that. Just know that the highlights are not blown, but it's such a dramatic picture. Obviously, incredible vista with the cross, the person silhouetted there, and then the clouds and just how that cyan sky just has that swath of it going across there. Very nice.
Yeah, fantastic. And I believe so, thank you so much. I'm glad that you're live with us today. Thank you so very much for the submission and for this beautiful photograph. Very well done. Very well done all around. And thank you to absolutely everyone who submitted images. It is always an absolute pleasure to receive all your photographs. I love to look through them, and love how you share a bit of your world with us. So again, very, very fortunate. Thomas is giving us a little bit of a background information. Thank you. So this was taken at 3,000 meters above sea level, if I understand that correctly. And not an easy capture. I get dizzy just...
It probably wasn't easy to get there. Yeah.
So, good on you that you still have a steady hand on that level. Definitely would not be for my husband. He does not even like any kind of heights. Anyway, fantastic. Thank you, guys. This has been an absolute pleasure. Absolutely wonderful to dive into this world. And we will say thank you in a short little while to everyone who submitted images. So do stick around. We're almost there, I promise, I think. We cannot close without introducing the next recipe, though.
Yeah.
Definitely can't. And as you know, we are introducing Fujichrome Sensia 100. We are going not a roundabout turn, but quite a departure from where we've been with Kodak Portra 400, I think. We like to mix it up and keep it interesting. So this recipe we chosen because it is also a recipe that you can, it's quite versatile. Would you say, Ritchie? It can be used in a lot of different situations.
So when I created this recipe, and it's made for X-Trans 3 cameras, but you can use it on it's fully compatible with the XT3 and XT30. Just set color chrome effect to off. If you have even a newer camera, you have set clarity to 0, color chrome effect blue to off, and then you'll have to decide on grain size. I would suggest small. So if you have an X-Trans 3 camera, X-Trans 4 camera, you can use it. I created it and not trying to mimic Sensia, but trying to make a film simulation recipe that uses Provia, because at the time that I created it, I only had like 2. So that was the intention. And after the fact, I decided it did resemble Sensia film. There were 3 different versions of Sensia 100 that each looked a little bit different, that were made by Fujifilm, starting, or I think it was introduced, I think, in 1994, discontinued in 2011. It was their consumer grade slide film that was just intended for everyday users, not necessarily professional use. Obviously, Belvia was their more popular one, and Provia 100F or 400. Those were very popular film stocks. Astia a little bit for portraits, but this was your everyday film stock. But I think it was most popular amongst people doing cross processing. A lot of people used it for that purpose, and I was Natalie had asked me yesterday if I'd shot with this, and I'm like, I think I have, but I couldn't remember yesterday. But then as I thought about it more, I did. I think I shot a roll or two of it a long time ago, around the year 2001, maybe. And so I tried to dig through my slides yesterday to see if I could find an example, and I couldn't. I didn't look hard enough. I just went through a couple boxes, and yeah, yeah, I did find it, and because I was gonna hold up a little example of it, but unfortunately I couldn't find it. But
Well,
yeah, that's the backstory of the recipe in the film.
maybe you could have held up any kind of slide, because I'm not sure anyone
Well,
else
yeah,
would have been able to tell.
yeah,
But
that's probably true. Yeah.
all right, fantastic. So there you have it. It's Fujichrome Sensia 100. We've got some
Mhm.
sample images to show you just what you can kind of expect to get from it. And here's a sample that you are sharing, Ritchie. So
Yeah,
what?
it's just captured in the backyard. It was shaded, and you see how those greens are rendered. Once again, it kind of looks like it's blown out, but it's not.
Mm.
Yeah, I just love how this recipe does when it's not in direct harsh sunlight, and you have those greens in it and stuff like that.
Yes, yeah. Green is always good to look at to see what kind of
Mhm.
quality you get from a recipe. Definitely a
And of
color
course,
like.
Fujifilm is known for how their greens are rendered, in film.
Yes, exactly. And so, looking more at different colors, an image that I chose again to show, different kinds of colors in the photograph. So this is, it gives this image a bit of a vintagey feel, if I can put it that. It was a store that we stumbled across that was stuffed full of all sorts of things, and yeah, I felt it was a nice opportunity to just have a look, and I think it rendered it almost real life, but just a little bit more on the romantic side, if I can say.
Yeah,
This
and you can see you have a lot of examples of colors in there too.
Yeah, I do, because I'm quite curious myself to see how the colors come out, and then compare that. Lynn is asking if the recipe can also be shot on the XT4.
The answer is yes, but the difference is you'll have to. It's not spelled out in the recipe because it's intended for X-Trans 3. But you'll have to set clarity to 0, color chrome effect, and color chrome effect blue to off, and then pick a grain size, which I would suggest small. And then once you do that, you can use it on your XT4.
Yes, so we definitely try to pick recipes that everyone can use. There will be slight variations, but that is totally fine, so that you can experience the different recipes.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on to another example, and I'd love that.
So this one kind of demonstrates the blues pretty well. I mean, there's a little bit of green there in the left. This is more in daylight as opposed to being in shade, but you get an idea of how the blues will come out when you use this recipe.
Yes, yeah, I absolutely love it. Turquoise is one of my favorite colors of all time, and I need this lamp. That's what I can think. That's lovely. It's really nice. So yeah, so you are mentioning this was shot in harsh light and not in shade, because we think that Fujichrome Sensia does very well in more of a shade, open shade, not so much in harsh daylight.
Yeah, so this was in daylight. I won't say it was in harsh daylight. It wasn't necessarily the brightest. You could kind of see from the shadows where the sun was, and um, it was like I don't know, like evening but not sunset, kind of thing. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yes.
It wasn't golden hour, but it wasn't the middle of the day either. It wasn't
Yeah.
noon. Um,
So that definitely works. Definitely works very well for Fujichrome Sensia. All right,
mhm.
and then we have an image that was shot. A study of 17 different shades of green in the background.
Yeah, and I love this picture, by the way. It's got such a soft quality to it.
Yeah, so that was a lucky find, like way back when I first shot Fujichrome Sensia before we chose it.
Hmm.
Okay, and Dan is a fan of it as well, so
Oh
fantastic.
wow,
A very nice.
awesome!
Yeah. Looking forward to seeing lots of examples popping up on your Instagram, maybe, Dan. Great. Then we have one more, or have we got two more images to go? Let's have a look. There's one more of yours, Ritchie.
Yeah, so this was the middle of the day, but it was in a shaded area. It was like a scale train that's big enough that you can ride on it.
Oh wow.
And so in this one, you get to see like the yellows and the orange. How it's rendered, and then um, and then also it gives you an idea of what it looks like in the shade. Because this is completely shaded, but in daylight. So.
Yes, very nice. Very nice and bright.
Mm-hmm.
Pilot Pete has been sold on Fujichrome Sensia 100. It's very good to hear that. Thank you. Tame, and our audience is not getting tired. Their hands must be very sore from all the clapping. And let's have another at the very last image. And that was, I think, where I fell in love with this recipe is like photographing sunsets or sunrises for that matter, which, I stumbled across. And I just absolutely love I don't know if it's a velvety or a some kind of a feel. It feels like it
Mhm.
puts it over the image that I really enjoy, and it just really enhances the pink hues. I
Mhm.
think so. So I really had a lot of fun shooting it on the beach. I mean, how can you not
Yeah.
have shooting on the beach? But with this particular recipe, so yeah,
But
so.
yeah, I agree. Sunrise, sunset is a good time to use this recipe.
So, yes, so that's what's in store for the next couple of weeks. We hope you will enjoy it a lot. Great to hear, Lynn, that you're also going to try it out. So, there are a lot of people traveling in the next couple of while. So, that's wonderful. It's great. And thank you for all your feedback. It's really good
Mhm.
to hear, because we choose these recipes so that we can all enjoy it, and we hope that it helps in exploring the world of recipes. So give it a try, and then don't forget to upload your images so that we can all share in it in the next month. And just to have another look, we thought we'll give it a bit of a memo, like a summary of what to expect. Yeah. And we.
And yeah, so we say, it's good for sunrise, sunset, and shade. And we have like the little like do not enter or stop symbol for midday or high contrast. And I would say maybe that's where the recipe is weaker. It's not gonna do as well in those situations, but that doesn't mean you can't try it or use it in those, and you could still get good results.
Yes, absolutely. And then Dan says it's great for older cameras that can't save white balance shift. it uses fluorescent 2 white balance.
So what he's saying is that because your camera, if it's older than the X Pro 3, since your camera can't save a white balance shift in your C1 through C7 custom presets, your camera will remember one white balance shift per white balance type. So if each of your 7 recipes uses a different white balance type, you don't have to remember to change the shift every time you change the recipe.
And I guess because fluorescent 2 is a white balance that is not used very often,
Yes.
it is a good one to have. Excellent. That makes it even more interesting.
Yep.
Fantastic. So this is it, a nice in-depth look at Fujichrome Sensia 100. Go out and try it, test it, and share with us what you like, and we will see your results in the next month.
Looking
Please
forward to that.
upload them here. Yes, either scan the QR code or type in the link. We also, try to share it everywhere. It's also in the description of the show to make sure that it's easy for you to upload the images. Share up to 3, we say, so that, we can then put them in the slideshow and all of us can feast on it next month. Please upload them by the 15th of November. That's 2 days before the next show. Correct, it's again not the second Thursday because we are so late in this show. We wanted to give you an extra week. So you have 3 weeks to shoot with it. And on Tuesday, the 15th of November, please make sure that you have them in there. Set yourself a reminder now so that you don't forget the cutoff, so that we can still include all your images in our slideshow. And here we go. If you have any more questions, please don't be shy. Ask them here, there, everywhere. We are always happy to help and, want to make sure that you get along with the recipe or with anything that might bug you so that we can get you shooting lots of awesome looking JPEGs.
Yeah, and even if we don't answer it right now, if you ask it, we can cover it in a future episode, like our tip of the day or something like that. A lot of times that comes from your guys' questions.
Yes, absolutely.
So, definitely don't hesitate to ask, even though we're here at the end of the show. If there's anything you want to know more about, ask it and we'll try and answer it in the show. And if we don't, then look for it maybe as a tip of the day or something like that in a future episode.
Exactly. So you never know. Don't stop asking. And speaking of which, there's another question from Jojo saying, when shooting with a filter, let's say a Pro Mist filter, and a recipe that has clarity or sharpening, is the camera going to try and compensate the filter? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think the camera, it's a great question. And I think the camera is not going to try and compensate for the filter. For example, it's like if it's seeing that the image is maybe the camera's interpreting it as being less sharp because of the filter, it's not going to add extra sharpness to it. So, for example, if a recipe calls for clarity and you use a Pro Mist filter or Cinebloom or whatever, then it's going to add extra diffusion on top of that. So if a recipe calls for -3 clarity and you're using a Pro Mist, it's going to be even more diffused looking than if you were to just use the clarity or just use the filter, which you might really like the results. For example, I did an experiment of like using multiple diffusion filters at the same time. Do 2 or 3 of them stacked together to see what you could get, and you can get this kind of like dreamy, soft look out of it, which is you might appreciate. Or you might find that using the Pro Mist and the negative clarity is causing it to be too diffused, in which case you could use just the Pro Mist or just the clarity instead. There's a lot of different ways you could tackle that. But I don't think the camera is doing anything additionally because you're using a Pro Mist.
Fantastic.
I hope that answers the question.
The possibilities are endless. And so seems to be this show. There is another comment from. He is still amazed of the work on your work on the widgets. He says, I'm using them now and have them organized on open iPhone pages. Super efficient this way. Love it. Thank you. He made use of the time in the show to try it out, clearly. First-hand experience and feedback. Thank you very much. That is awesome.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I have like pages of widgets on my phone. It's kind of funny. It's taken over. So
yeah, I can't wait to decorate my phone after the show. Ravi is asking for some input. He is going to Green Mountain, Nepal with his XT30, and he's looking for a simulation to use there.
Yeah, so I always, like Velvia, like a Velvia or Proof Velvia or Velvia V2 or something like that, to really bring out those greens. I mean, I'm not sure if the mountains are green or if that's the name of the mountain. Is it but
it's Nepal.
I'm assuming the mountains. Yeah. So, I try Velvia or one of the Velvia recipes.
Yeah, and possibly some travel photography kind of recipe.
Fujichrome. Yeah, or even like Kodachrome 64 could be good or something like that.
Yes. Plenty of options. Okay, Randy loved your post about diffusion filters, and he's going to try them out. Yes, it's
awesome.
Yes, I'm right there with him. Georgia says, "Thank you, Ritchie."
Glad to help.
All right, excellent, guys. I think it is time for us to move on to the lucky draw, because everyone who submitted an image for today's show automatically stands a chance to win 12 months of subscription of the Fuji X Weekly app. And we are going to draw a winner now live here on the show. It is, drawn from one of the viewers that have submitted, and we've taken a name and we put it on our lucky wheel, and we're going to spin it and see who's going to be our winner for this month's show.
And even if you already have a subscription, if you win, reach out to us. We'll work out something. So the main thing is, if you win, email us. Look us up on Instagram and send a DM to either Nathalie or I.
Yes.
And we'll get it all worked out.
Yes, exactly. And on that note, let's spin that wheel and find our winner for today. Go, 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 wheel. Let's spin the wheel. Thank you to everyone for submitting. And we need to do this again. We need to spin the wheel again. Björn has already won. I think it was in the episode before last. So he's all fixed up. So I think it's, I think everyone agrees that we need to give this wheel another spin. Is that right? Oh,
sorry, Bjorn.
Okay. So I don't know what that means, but Ritchie, do you agree that we'll spin that again?
Sure. Let's do it again.
Okay. I'm sure Björn would agree if he was here with us. That was close. That was very close. At the end. Matt, you are our winner for today.
Congratulations.
Please do get in touch with us. Yes. If not, we know where to find you so that we can sort out the winnings. Thank you on behalf of Björn, or from Björn, I should say, to pay forward this winning. I'm sure everyone is happy with that. And that's it. This is our winner for today. Congratulations once again. And to pick up on, us reaching out into the community and wanting you to come and join us on the show, please, you've heard it firsthand, live, unsolicited, that it's not as scary as it might feel in the very beginning. Please join us on the show. We want to meet you. We want to share with the rest of the community what it is that makes you shoot recipes. So reach out. You can comment with a hashtag or connect with us on any social media platform if you would like to join the show.
Yeah, and I also want to give a big shout out right now to Stephen Wells for coming on and being a part of this episode, and his willingness to do that and just all the insight he offered. So just a big special thank you to Stephen, and make sure that you find him, look him up on Instagram, send him a little message, or, like some of his pictures and give him a comment or two, and just show your appreciation to him in that way as well.
Yes. I couldn't agree more, Ritchie. Absolutely fabulous. And he's been very willing on a very short notice, because we had to, shift the dates of the show so that, made it not possible for someone else who will join us next month. Yes. So thank you again to him, to everyone, to all of you watching. We are at the end of the show. Can you believe it? And it's time to say
Almost.
Thank yous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a. We went over our time again. We have a habit of doing that.
Yes.
But we appreciate everybody who's taken the time to be here. We took a long chunk of your day, and I hope that you found it to be worthwhile. So we appreciate you. We do this for you, and I hope it was a good episode. I feel like it was. I feel like this was a good episode.
Yes, time flew by.
Yeah.
And if you are watching this not live but after the fact, thank you so much for sticking it out all the way to the end. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's always wonderful to be here. And we couldn't do this without you. So make sure that you catch up on the recipes and join us again next month. The 17th of November is the next date to the show. We can't wait to do it all over again. We will see you then. Thank you also to Ritchie for all your time and effort and all your wonderful work you do over at Fuji X Weekly.
Thank you.
It is goodbye. Have a wonderful rest of your day, super evening, a good morning, wherever you have tuned in from. Thank you for your support, and see you again.
Participation and all the comments and questions and everything else. It was really great to see all that.
Yes, exactly. So, logging out from over here. See you again next time. And
bye.